Welcome to episode 6 of Geno's Guys. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by Matt and Andrew. And I figured this game would be a little closer than the BU 50 plus point win. It was. It was a 37-point win for the Huskies over South Florida earlier this afternoon. This was another dominant performance. It was a little close in the first quarter. It was like a 6-point game after the first quarter, which if that's close, I guess. But another dominant performance. Paige Bueckers after a all right opener did a lot better, scored a game high 22 points. Great production from everyone pretty much across the board. What was your guys' reaction to this one, knowing what we saw in that first game and just carrying over to the next one?
Obviously, good win. 37 points is nothing to be mad about. Just another ass kicking of an American Conference opponent, just in general. But I'm going to skip Paige for now. Obviously, 22 points on 9 of 10 is fantastic. But I want to go to Ashlynn Shade, 15 points, 7 of 10. That's a fantastic game from a sophomore starting for her second season. And that's what I just wanted to talk about first. She looks like that she can shoot the ball effortlessly now. It's not really even a problem for her shooting. So honestly, that if I'm going to take like a big win out of this game, it's the 15-point game from Ashlynn Shade.
And I'm going to take another big win, which is the continued consistency of the role players. I mean, the role players are not role players at other schools. They're just too good for that. But again, Caitlin Chen, very efficient, 4-7, 8-7. I mean, if you can get this from her every night, that would be spectacular. Someone to just kind of come in and, facilitate when Paige needs a possession off, or if Paige is looking to score. Caitlin Chen kind of seems like that perfect little fire and ice combo where she can facilitate, Paige can score, and not have to worry about it. So again, I'm just more uh, happy to see the quote unquote role players coming in and just showing their stuff.
Yeah, Caitlin Chen is who I was going to start my talk with because you lose Nika Mule, who she's a true point guard. She was getting close to 7 assists a night. You obviously Paige Bueckers is talented. She can handle the ball. She can find her teammates, but you don't really want her being your primary point guard. So there was clearly a void with someone to be the lead distributor going into the offseason. Her and I almost said Hurley. Jeez, Geno found his guy, his girl. I'm all over the place, but Caitlin Chen, she's really balling out in her first 2 games. She only scored 8 points, but she had a couple of very confident drives to the hoop. Just looked like someone who belongs in this program, which is I feel like exactly what we're looking for to replace Nika Mule. And I want to talk about Ice Brady because she was my player to watch for this one after a slow start in the exhibition game and a slow start in the opener against BU. She scored the first 4 points of the game for the Huskies in this one. Saw some nice touches inside and also knocked down a smooth lefty jumper to give her 6 first quarter points. She finished the game with 8 points, 4 or 5 shooting. And I said I wanted to get her in double figures, but I'll certainly take that because she looked very confident out there. She was diving for some loose balls. She was just looking like she belonged in that starting lineup. I know there was talk could maybe go some twin tower action with Geno Alfie in there with Sarah Strong. But speaking of Sarah Strong, she had another solid game, 13, 7, 4, 2 steals, just stuff in the stat sheet. I feel like you'll see that a lot from her this year. But yeah, closing my point on Ice Brady, I feel like she's going to play some key minutes this season. She played 23 against South Florida. I feel like this was a great step in the right direction for her.
Yeah, and I want to bring up my player to watch too, who was Yana Alfi. We kind of went against each other there at the big five spot, but yeah, I mean she played pretty efficient, 6-7. She didn't foul at all. She turned the ball over a few times, but got a steal back. But in this game, Brady definitely got the bulk of the minutes, 23-17. I'm just kind of curious to see where this goes going forward. Brady was the hot hand last night. Will we continue to feed that high end, or will we, try and swap them out based on matchups? I don't know, but I feel like for the rest of this, the preseason at least, that this is going to kind of be a gamely discussion that we have where who's going to get to start or who's going to get a bulk of the minutes.
And I just want to talk about our problem last year, which was we were a Final Four team with one problem, which was the lack of true forwards. And that problem has been crumpled up and thrown away. That shouldn't ever be talked about again because we also have Sarah Strong with another fantastic game, 13 points on 5 of 8. So with Strong, El Alfie, and Ice Brady, that problem last year of only having Aaliyah Edwards down on the post is just non existent. And I think that's fantastic for this program. Obviously, Strong showing great signs still as a freshman, but in general, this team's just looking fantastic so far.
I think an important part, we're kind of debating who should be in the starting lineup. Last year, there was no debating. We had like seven healthy players. So the fact that we're debating this after game two, when we're still missing three or four players that will try to compete for rotational spots. And I know I said seven healthy players. There were nine, but Enos Betancourt and Mari DeBerry really didn't play much at all. It was really a seven-woman rotation. But yeah, the fact that we're having this debate after game two is just it's a sign that the program's going in the right direction health-wise, and we're still missing some key components like AZ Fudd, who I imagine will be a starter. I can't imagine she'll come off the bench, maybe a little bit at the beginning once she's healthy, but once she's back, she's going to be in that starting lineup. Who's she taking out? Are you taking out Caitlin Chen, who's been your best distributor? You take out Ashlynn Shade, who just scored 15 points on 70% shooting. It's a great problem to have, and it's a problem that not a lot of teams around the country have, especially at the top. Let's see, who else haven't we really touched upon? I want to talk a little bit more about Sarah Strong because some of the plays that she's doing, I said this last episode, I'll say it again. It's not doesn't look like a freshman. There was an inbounds pass that she deflected. She got the steal, finished coast to coast on the layup. She knocked down that three after a cross court pass. It's just I know I'm making a very weird comparison here, but she just reminded me a little bit like Nikola Jokic out there. Just the way she moves, the way she can distribute the ball with the four assists. I mean, she's nowhere near the talent level of Jokic, but I don't know her ball movement, just the way she rebounds the ball, the way she defends. It's just I got those vibes. Baby Jokic, Sarah Strong, but yeah, that's I don't know. I just thought about that comparison watching the game.
She's like Jokic if Jokic was more explosive. The way she kind of just from the 3-point line can just hit a jab step and get into the paint with ease. We haven't seen this in a very long time from anybody. So I'm pretty excited to see, over the season where she can develop because she already looks like a pretty polished player.
Yeah, definitely very polished coming in. 25 minutes in this one, 5 of 8 from the field. I mean, 1 for 4 from three. Maybe that's we don't probably don't need her taking four threes once everyone's healthy, but I'm certainly fine with her taking one or two because she proves that she can knock them down. But let's see who I haven't really we talked about yet. Morgan Shelley came off the bench, 15 minutes, hit two threes, one in the first half, one in the second. She looked like she had a very confident stroke when she knocked down both of those threes. Ali Zybel, she didn't take a three in this one. She is almost as good, if not a better shooter than Shelley. She made her only bucket in 10 minutes. Kaden Samuels played 6 minutes towards the end. So everyone got in again. Obviously, this was a more competitive game than BU in terms of like the competitors themselves. So we didn't see Kaden Samuels play 15 minutes like she did in the first one. We didn't see Zybel and Shelley play as much. We saw the starters play. Every starter played at least 23 minutes. KK Arnold off the bench played 23 minutes, had 5 rebounds, 6 points, 2 assists. She stuffed stats she as always. She had some nice defensive plays as well. Just overall, another great step in the right direction, beating a program that is, I mean, I don't honestly don't know how good South Florida is going to be this year, but I mentioned that in our preview, they've been a very respectable program over the past decade, especially while we were in the American as foes with them. They were clearly that second best team after us. So to handle them like that, I feel like it just shows that the experience this team has with Paige Bueckers. Like Paige, she scored 22 points, 9 of 10 shooting, a lot of mid ranges. She knocked down a couple of threes, just did it all offensively. So just showing the experience we have there with her at the top is just, I'm really excited for this team, especially going into the next game, which we'll talk about in a minute here.
And real quickly, I just want to touch on KK Arnold and the fact that having a player like her on our bench who would start on probably 97% of teams in college basketball just speaks volumes for how good this team truly is. Even if someone like Kaylin Chen gets bumped to the bench once AZ Fudd comes back, and maybe Aubrey Griffin gets in the starting lineup too, and somebody else gets bumped to the bench, just it speaks volumes on the depth that this team has. And I feel like that's the biggest, vocal point for this team this year is just in general, the depth that they've got. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say that the bench of this team could be a top 20 women's basketball team. It's crazy to see as opposed to last year where we were lucky to get 7 people in a game.
Yeah, you look at our bench, you bring up a pretty fascinating point there. I mean, KK Arnold, Morgan Shelley, Ali Zybel, Samuel Alfie. That's just counting the players that are healthy on the bench. I feel like a top 25 team at least. I mean, you have two top 10, 11. I forget exactly where Chelly and Zyvel are ranked, but they're in the top at least 15 for this past year's class. You have Caden Samuels, who has been around the UConn program now in her second year. El Alfie, who has shown great signs early on. And KK Arnold, who started pretty much all of last year. I feel like that team almost has to be ranked in the top 25. And that's our second five. And probably two or three of those players won't be in the rotation for when the games really matter in March. It's just the depth on this team is really showing for the first time in a few years, Andrew, as you added. We were lucky to have seven players. We only had really six play in that Final Four game versus Iowa. So, yeah, I mean, do you guys got anything else about this South Florida game? Just another strong effort from everyone. Paige, Bueckers, Shade, Strong, all the same contributors. Everyone balled out. We'll talk a little bit about that North Carolina game now. Maybe more than a little bit. I don't know why I said a little bit, but this is going to be one of our toughest tests to start the season so far. North Carolina, as of the time of recording, is ranked 15th in the country. Huskies obviously are ranked number 2 behind South Carolina. But this is not going to be a game in Hartford or Storrs. Huskies are traveling down to Greensboro, which it's not a true home game for North Carolina, but I mean, come on. We're traveling to the state of North Carolina to take them on a neutral site game. Before we really talk about this, what's your guys' initial thoughts about this matchup? I feel like it's going to be a really interesting test, especially in the second week of the season, to see where we are, especially seeing we're still down some key players.
Yeah, and North Carolina obviously is a good squad. They lost their superstar from last year, Deja Kelly, but the emergence of Alyssa Usby as that number one option is kind of coming to fruition. I feel like, they're a very deep, talented team. They have like 8 or 9 players who played more than 10 minutes in the first game. So I'm just curious to see how this kind of injury-riddled UConn team currently can handle that depth. I want to see the consistency of the role players continue. I want to see more from Caitlin Chen. I know we've seen a lot already, but I'm ready to see that kind of double-double type night that we're here to expect. So, just overall, we need to see that kind of depth and, the rest of the team around Paige be able to handle this deep squad.
Yeah, ESPN is giving us a 98% chance to win. I obviously we're all fans of this program, but I think that's a little weird. They are at this time the 15th ranked team in the country, so I feel like a 98% chance to beat the number 15 in the country team in the country on the road is not really true. But I feel like North Carolina's got a really good squad this year. Like Matt said, they lost their star, but Lexi Donarski is if we were doing players to watch for Carolina, it's her because she had a really, really good game against UNC Wilmington. She had 21 in 30 minutes, 8 of 14 from the field. So she's a guard and going to be very hard to defend her. But I feel like in general, this is a great test for in the beginning of the season. But I still think we'll definitely have it for sure.
Yeah, because in women's basketball, especially in the Big East for UConn, the Big East is not a great women's basketball conference. We're not going to act like it is. I mean, that's no offense to the other programs. It's just there's much better ones out there like the ACC, SEC, Big Ten, all the Power Four really conferences. So you need to schedule these tough non-conference games like we see. Usually, UConn plays out of the top 15, honestly, 6 or 7 of them in non-conference play, usually. So this is the first one of those games. It's going to be a very interesting test. And like you mentioned, Matt, there's no Deja Kelly anymore, but all their players are stepping up for this UNC team that didn't have as large of roles last year, which is something that Geno is going to have to plan for and deal with. He has until Friday. We're recording this after the game on Sunday, so they have a full week of practice to prepare for this game. I'm confident they'll get the win. But like you said, Andrew, I'm looking at the same thing on ESPN, 98% chance to win. I mean, come on. We're basically going on the road to a top 15 team in the first 2 weeks of the season. Anything can happen in that game. Am I confident we'll win the game? I am. I'm confident the Huskies will win every game pretty much they throw in front of them this year. But we'll move on to finish up here with some players to watch for this one. This is going to be a more interesting segment of players to watch. It is a game that is not against BU or USF. Who you guys got?
Well, I'm gonna go with my pick from last. I'm gonna go with Paige again. I mean, she's the hot hand right now. I feel like this might be a little boring for players to watch, but I feel like she's still gonna, against a good team. I said that she was gonna be less passive against really good teams, and I think that's gonna be true for this game. So I think that she's definitely gonna lead the team in scoring, but also look to Alfie again if she does come off the bench. I feel like she's going to shock this Carolina team if she does come off the bench. So I feel like it's got to be those two.
I'm gonna roll, kind of double down on what I said before with Caitlin Chen, how the backcourt of North Carolina is pretty good, and Paige can't do everything, so I'm looking for Caitlin Chen here to kind of have a double double, like I mentioned, that 10 and 10. Not sure which way I'd go here. Just I want to see more out of Chen.
And I'm gonna go Sarah Strong because we've seen her have two very solid performances against teams that, let's be honest, she better have solid performances against those teams. This is going to be a test for her. Her first real, I don't want to call it real game, but her first game against a team that's probably going to be in the NCAA tournament, a team that's capable of winning multiple games in the NCAA tournament. I'm curious to see how she, as a freshman, handles it. Also, her first game that's not at home, because sure, it's not a home game for UNC, but it's going to be a heavy UNC crowd in Greensboro. I want to see how she handles that because I feel like I don't know if the crowd can get under her skin. I feel like if I was a freshman playing my first game and I'm supposed to be the star player, I could maybe easily get irritated by the crowd early on. So I'm curious to see how she adapts there. Before we wrap up, I was pretty sure this was the case, and I just looked and it is. We played them last year at Mohegan Sun. I guess this is part of I should know this. We should know this as now a Geno's Guys women's basketball podcast. I guess it's kind of like a home and home neutral site type of thing. Last year, I remember playing them. We only beat them by 12 at Mohegan Sun, and we were tied at halftime. So they gave us a good game. Obviously, they had Deja Kelly last year, but I'm noticing a lot of similar names in the box score to the players on their roster this year. So I'm expecting a very good game, especially with them technically having the home court advantage in this one. You guys got any last remarks before we move on? I'm saying move on. We're wrapping up, I should say. No, I don't have any more either. This is a lot of fun, as always. This is going to be a good game versus UNC. I don't know when this episode will go out. Probably Tuesday. So if you're listening to this before Tuesday, I lied. After Tuesday for the first time, I lied. But that's probably what I'm shooting for right now. So if any news comes out or something and we missed it, that's because we recorded it early. But yeah, I'm excited for this game. I'm certainly going to be more tuned in to this one than I was, honestly, BU or USF, because it's going to be a great game. I'm hoping for a Husky win. I'm confident they will. We'll definitely recap that one once it's over sometime next week. And yeah, that's all we got. Thank you guys for watching.